Okay, we've worked with reducing rational expressions. Now we're going to look at multiplying and dividing. Well, multiplying and dividing rational expressions, just like for regular numeric fractions, it's easier than addition and subtraction. And I've written out here basically what you do. If you have a over b times c over d, you multiply across the numerator, multiply across the denominator. And what you try to do is to then reduce or simplify by factoring. If it's division, well, for numeric fractions, you'd keep the first, change the division to multiplication, and flip the second, and then multiply. And that's what we're going to do, the same thing. Now, if it's written as division, written this way, where you have the division sign between the two fractions, you can always change it to using the other division sign. And then it becomes a over b times, I forgot to flip that fraction, it should be d over c, so then it's ad times bc. So that's what we're going to do with the fractions we're going to work with. But what's helpful is to cancel anything between a numerator and denominator that they have in common. So kind of reduce it as we go along. So what we'll start doing is factor each numerator and each denominator. Then if there's anything in common between a numerator and a denominator, we can cancel it. So if we look at the x squared minus 2x plus 1, we have x and x, minus and minus. We know the signs are the same because the last sign is positive, so we go with the first sign, which is negative. And then it's 1 and 1 because we don't have too many pairs of numbers which when multiplied give us 1. And then negative 1 times negative 1, or plus negative 1 gives us the negative 2. In the denominator, we have a common factor of x. X cubed divided by x is x squared, plus x divided by x leaves us with a 1. Now with the second one, second numerator, we have a common factor of 4. 4x squared divided by 4 leaves us x squared, plus 4 divided by 4 leaves us with a 1. Now the denominator of the second fraction, we're going to have an x and an x. In this case, the last sign is negative, which means we have a positive and a negative. So we want to multiply to get a negative 2, but add to get a positive 1, which means we have to have a positive 2 and a negative 1. So now we look at this. X squared plus 1 and x squared plus 1 cancels. X minus 1 and x minus 1 cancels. Now if we multiply across the numerator and the denominator, what's left? We have 4 times x minus 1 over x times x plus 2. And we leave it in factored form just in case there's a common factor that we missed. Now let's go to the next one. The next one is a division. It's written with a big division line between the two fractions. So we can rewrite it using the other division sign and write it linearly. And now follow our process. So it's keep the first fraction, change the sign to multiplication, flip the second fraction. Now factor. So we have x plus 3 is already in factored form. X squared minus 4, we have a difference of 2 squares. So it's x plus 2, x minus 2. X cubed minus 8, we have a difference of 2 cubes. So it's x minus 2 times square the first, change the sign, product of the two, always positive, square the second. Now for a trinomial, we're going to have two binomials. So x and x, one's positive, one's negative. Well, we look at this, negative 12, multiply to give negative 12, add to give negative 1. We're going to have a positive 3 and a negative 4. So x plus 3 cancels. X minus 2 cancels. We're left with x squared plus 2x plus 4 over x plus 2, x minus 4. Next one is multiplication. So we're going to factor. Common factor of 3, so 3 times x plus 2. No factoring we can do in the bottom, although you could, if you wanted to, write it as 5 times x times x. No factoring in the numerator. We have x minus 2 and x plus 2 in the denominator. X plus 2 cancels, x cancels, so we're left with 3 over 5x times x minus 2. Now again, we have a division, so we need to separate it into two separate fractions. Then change it to a multiplication, keep the first fraction, change the sign to multiplication, flip the second fraction. Now we factor. Well, what we can do, because normally we like it written as x plus or minus something, we can factor a negative 1 out, the numerator, so we have negative 1 times x minus 4 over, and this, because it's a plus, we can just rearrange it to be x plus 4, times, and x squared minus 16 is another difference of 2 squares. So we have x plus 4, x minus 4, and the 4x. So the x plus 4 cancels, and we're left with negative 1 times x minus 4 quantity squared over 4x. And remember, that negative 1 can be written 3 different places. It can either be written with the numerator in front of the entire fraction, or with the denominator.